Gem International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond producing country in Africa, located next to the fourth largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109 carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. Gem International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Chris Vermeulen. His website is thegoldandOilGuy.com. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Oil prices remaining over $50 a barrel. The OPEC announcement that they'd be cutting back production in January, or at least freezing current production levels, which are at a record high. Still, that news has kept oil higher than I would expect it to be this time of year.
Yeah, oil's holding. It's got a lot of upward momentum here. This week has been, or the last week of trading has been very strong. We saw crude oil jump almost 10% in one day a few sessions ago, and of course it has continued to move higher. Right now crude oil is trading at that upper level, a key resistance zone, the 51, 52 level, which is a major multi-year basing pattern that, if it breaks out from, the next stop is going to be about 62 and in the lower 70s. It's going to have a lot of momentum, but I don't see it quite breaking out then. But really, if we look at the seasonality charts for crude oil, we typically see strength into the second half of December, but really the market usually kind of rolls over and we don't see a bottom in crude oil until February. So come February, which is same as what we saw last year, the crude oil market bottomed in February, and I have a feeling we're going to see crude oil continue to hold up really, really well here, but we'll probably see a little bit of weakness going into February over the next 2 months, and then I think we could see crude oil break out of this multi-year basing pattern and really explode higher where, by the end of next year, we could be seeing 70s, potentially $80 barrel crude oil.
Now, of course, Canadian and U.S. producers are not part of this OPEC agreement. Technically, Russia isn't part of OPEC, but they say they'll go along with it. All it takes is a few dozen frackers in the U.S. to decide, well, we're going to turn on the taps here and take advantage of these higher prices to bring them back down again.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, exactly. Once crude oil hits a certain point, all these people who can get started relatively quickly, why wouldn't they want to jump in and start making money? So it will probably be an issue once the prices get up there, but I think we really need to see prices, well above $50 per barrel before they're going to start doing that because, the average price to get out of the ground is still relatively high and they need a huge buffer, wiggle room before they're going to want to turn on those taps. But for sure, I guarantee there'll be a whole bunch of places once we see $60 per barrel oil or higher, there's going to be a lot of people turning on the faucets, pouring out oil, and that'll probably put a damper on things. But there could be still quite a big delay before people can get geared up and producing, and for all that to get into the system.
Now, what about this new basin of oil they've discovered near Dallas?
I haven't heard anything about it. I haven't been following that, so I'm not sure exactly how that's going to play out.
Of course, it's nice to know there's a basin of oil, but you still have to go get it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too, right? Is you don't know what it's going to take to get it out and process it, what kind of oil it is. I'm sure they've got to figure it out somehow, but yeah, I haven't heard or followed up on any of that, so I'm not too sure what it is. But obviously, a huge basin of oil could be a game changer, depending how big it is.
Now, natural gas, we expected, according to the Farmer's Almanac, to have a cold winter, and right across Canada, first time in a long time, every major city got a huge dump of snow on Monday. More snowstorms expected later in the week. Natural gas must be doing well.
It is. It's been on fire. And, yesterday was a huge update in natural gas. We saw a big rally hit new multi-month highs, potentially actually a multi-year high there yesterday, natural gas. And, of course, natural gas, you and I have talked about for a while how it had a basing formation, and how it broke out kind of in October and then had a little correction, and since early November here, we've seen it really take off and explode to the upside. And it still has quite a bit of upward momentum. I think the cold weather right across, North America, more or less, or Canada at least, has definitely got that kind of that upward momentum pushing. But with that said, it is kind of broken out. It's hit the next kind of key resistance level, which is the 375 area. It's a pretty critical level that we saw back in 2014, where we saw kind of this where natural gas had a major breakdown. It consolidated for several months, and then it had a big breakdown. So it's running into a key resistance area. It's had a very nice run. Price has gone kind of parabolic really for November. So usually what goes straight up when it hits resistance, we're going to see it probably have a pretty sharp little pullback here. But overall, long term, I've been bullish on natural gas all year. Looking forward, a year or two from now, I continue to see it outperforming and doing really well. I just think at this point, it's had a beautiful run and it's at some major resistance. So it might kind of lag or underperform for a few months while it kind of regroups, rebuilds a base, and continues to go higher down the road.
Is there any long-term prospect yet for BC liquefied natural gas?
I haven't been following that, but I remember reading a bit about it last year, and I'm not sure where that falls, but I know there was some pretty good potential last year talking about it. I don't know where that stands, but it's amazing the prices of natural gas, here in Canada, United States versus overseas, and how it's crazy to think that so many places in Canada, United States are like giving it away more or less, just trying to get rid of it. It's more of a problem than anything else. And on the other side of the world, they pay unbelievably high rates. So I don't see why we don't, get it over there and liquefy it. It makes good sense. I'm not sure how it works hazard-wise, but it should be something that should be taken full advantage of.
Well, natural gas, if there's a spill, it's not going to pollute the ocean. It could go bang is the big risk with it. But otherwise, it's not a major pollutant. It occurs naturally. It bubbles through water. In Peace River, Alberta, if you go 12 miles north of the town on a sandbar, there's natural gas that bubbles up through the river at a sandbar, and they take you up on a jet boat, and they'll throw a highway flare on it, and you can have your own little private flame burning away on top of a river.
Yeah, I've heard that. It's pretty amazing, really. It is, all that. How you can do that. Natural gas definitely has so many benefits, and it'd be nice if we could take full advantage of it. I guess the main problem is storage. There's so much of it. Really, we need to harness the power in a better way and take more advantage of it, because you hate to see all this energy being wasted.
And then you have the mayor of Vancouver who wants to ban natural gas in his city.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you take a look at what it costs to heat your home using electricity, which is atrocious, and using natural gas, which is very efficient and cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I watched a video, Elon Musk for Tesla and I think Solar City. He's got those new solar shingles, and it really is amazing. I watched his whole presentation there, and it is mind-blowing. Like, really, when you think about it, it just makes so much sense. Like, if only governments could pitch in for, like, grants to bring the cost down for the average person. Like, really, it's unbelievable, the story and the product, where he talks about, you're gathering all this free energy all day. You store it in this battery pack system they have, something that's called like a wall or something like that. But then you can run your whole house, during the evening and night and morning before the sun's up full force again, and your whole house is running, sufficient off these battery packs. And the whole world is changing. I can only imagine what it'll be probably like 30, 40 years from now. Maybe not that far out even, but we've got cell towers for our cell towers and satellites for our mobile phones, and pretty soon the whole world will just be wireless internet. And then with the internet, we use it for our cable TV. We use it for everything. So before you know it, our houses are power efficient with solar systems. our internet, our cell phone, our cable, everything is done through the internet. So you don't need any wires. We're going to be we could be like a wireless country, meaning who needs a telephone pole and telephone cables running everywhere? Everybody has mobile. So, the whole infrastructure of the world, the way it is, it could totally be obsolete. 40 years from now, poles will just be old dying things on the side of the highway. Those kids will be going, you used to have all these wires everywhere. Why do you have wires? We're going to be totally wireless in society before we know it. It's just a matter of, it'll be a major infrastructure change, but the old ways of wiring is gone.
Well, some people are questioning the Canadian federal government's decision to build a pipeline or double it from Edmonton to Vancouver when the whole world is trying to wean itself off oil.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. When I watch this presentation with Elon Musk and you see the wind and solar powers that can be used, it's amazing really how we can, if everybody could move in the same direction with solar and wind and, solar I think is, I don't know the full details, but solar to me seems like the ultimate solution, because it's clean, it's not an eyesore. You can have these beautiful shingles or solar panels on the roof, which aren't really that ugly anyway. This whole burning fuels and hurting the environment and stripping the environment is so harsh compared to some alternatives.
Well, yeah, don't forget 100 years ago is when we switched to oil because we'd killed all the whales where we were getting our oil from before that.
Right.
Yeah. So exactly. we don't have a great history of being nice to the environment when it comes to collecting energy. We'll have more with Chris Vermeulen right after the break.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Chris Vermeulen. Chris, the equity markets seem to be doing well. A surprise. People thought maybe they'd take a dive after Donald Trump was elected, but his building up of infrastructure and replacing all these broken parts, it seems to be striking a real chord, and basic materials, things like iron ore and copper, have really skyrocketed.
Yeah, it seems like investors, businesses love what Trump is saying, or what he's saying more or less at this point. And of course it sparked a huge feeding frenzy. Obviously, building creates huge jobs. It creates a massive amount of businesses to profit. So it's definitely fueling, I think, everything at this point. And, we're going we're in December, especially the second half of December, drawing near, and it's one of the strongest times of the year seasonally for the equities market. So I pretty much expect the equities market to hold up or continue higher here going into the new year. And you look at the transportation, you look at the leading sectors, they're all leading the way higher. Other than technology, you look at that sector, and it's the only one really sharply bucking the trend. It's been a pretty rough ride with the XLK, the energy sector ETF. It took a pretty big hit last week. But overall, the other leading indicators continue to move higher, and precious metals, they've been struggling. They're under pressure, and they continue to be under pressure until we see probably the equities market take a bit of a breather.
Is it a bad idea to own gold stock or gold bullion right now? Or is it a good opportunity to get some?
Well, my tune is changing on the outlook of what's going on because, ever since, we've seen the utilities, the industrial stocks, not utilities, transportation, industrial stocks, materials, all those things have exploded higher, and they kind of lead the market. And they led the market lower. Although the large caps didn't break down, They led the small caps lower. They were kind of a leading indicator that the market was getting toppy and lost all of its upward momentum. And now they're all outperforming and they're on fire, and that's a really bullish sign. So my tune here has actually changed, that I am more neutral or bullish on the equities market and more bearish on the safe haven plays. Everything is kind of changing. The market, I think, may have taken enough of a breather over the last year and a half that I think we could see the markets continue to go higher. And with that being said, we've seen the safe havens like bonds, precious metals pull back substantially. They're showing signs that they're oversold, that they're losing their downward momentum. Cycle analysis, seasonality analysis all show that we should see oil, we should see precious metals like gold bottom here. This is we should see some type of bottom over the next couple of months, a significant low. We're going to see a big bounce, I think, in those safe haven plays. And really that bounce in those safe haven plays, I think, are going to be the opportunity that if you are long them, to actually probably decrease the amount you own or to exit them in general. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm long metals, and I'm long bonds, and when we get some type of relief bounce here back up over the next month or two or three, I'll be looking to get out of those plays mainly and focusing more on hot sectors in the stock market, because that is where the money is flowing, and that's what technical analysis is showing, that we could be starting a new bull market in stocks again, or another leg higher.
Well, Trump wants to spend about $1 trillion on infrastructure. China has said it wants to spend $2 trillion in infrastructure. That means the kinds of things that Canada exports should look pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of money about to, I think, be pumped in here. A lot of business, a lot of jobs. Things are going to start to look really good with the jobs numbers. Everything's going to continue to show growth, and the masses follow that kind of those numbers. So the fact that it's about to start ramping up is going to be really bullish, I think, for quite some time.
Yes, and the expanded pipeline from Edmonton to the Vancouver area, they said that will employ 15,000 people. And you look at the tremendous job loss in the oil sector in Alberta, we know exactly where those people are going to come from. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it would be great. We need some of those jobs. Those are high-paying jobs, right? Those are really good jobs for what Canada needs.
And what's more, a country makes more money on income tax, of course, than it does on corporate taxes, which are easily avoidable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a little harder for Joe Lunchbucket going off to the oil patch to avoid paying his tax. You said seasonality plays a big role. So is there anything else that we should be looking at that seasons will affect?
One of the big seasonality is typically, the U.S. dollar plays a big role in things. And, seasonality, we usually have late November all the way through to January. We usually see a weak U.S. dollar. And, we've had a bounce to the U.S. dollar index, which coincides with seasonality because there is a bounce in December, early December. But then I think we're going to see some weakness here in the U.S. dollar for the next month or so. And that kind of coincides with stronger precious metals, potentially stronger bond prices. We might see the safe haven plays kind of bounce here, which is what I just mentioned. Ideally, I'd like to see the U.S. dollar fall. I'd like to see precious metals pop higher, and it could be a good exit point to get rid of some of the precious metals in your account and start focusing on equities going forward. So other than that, there are a couple of other plays out there that look pretty tasty that I'm long, which is corn. I do like the look of the corn chart, which is the symbol CORN. It seems to have built a really nice basing pattern to blast higher, and I also like the cotton sector. It's built a basing pattern, a nice bullish formation. It looks ripe and ready to pop and have a fairly significant run. So there's a couple areas that look interesting for some swing trades that could last a few weeks going into the end of the year. That's about it, though, at this point.
Now, are China and Russia still snapping up every ounce of gold they can find?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't really follow too much of what China does, and you know, I thought I heard something about India there potentially banning importing of gold. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, India says a lot of stuff that you don't know what they're going to do. I mean,
Well,
they thought they were going to
exactly.
loosen up the rules on gold, but right now the most heavily smuggled item into China isn't drugs like it is everywhere else. It's gold. So it's just going to make their problem worse, most likely, if they do that.
Yeah, I've heard a few different stories, but again, a lot of it's, you know, you can never really prove a lot of that stuff. So it's tough. You know, the gold market has always been manipulated, probably always will, and even if China is importing it, they have ways that they can, or if they're exporting it, whatever they're doing, there's always ways that all that stuff can be kind of fudged. So I don't really follow you know, typically news and rumors at all. I fully discount anything that's already, you know, if you hear it, it's probably already been factored into the price. So,
well, as you know, China predicted they would have 6.7% growth in 2016, and how much you want to bet that at the very end of the year they announced that they had 2.67% growth.
yeah,
You know, it's in China what the government says it'll do. That's what they announced they have done.
yeah, exactly.
Chris, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, always a pleasure, Jim. Thanks for having me on the show.
My guest has been Chris Vermeulen, his website, thegoldandoilguy.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Questions for the show can be emailed to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.